Who's James Norrington?
Not sure. Well, we're going to find out.
Love this vibe, but I'm in the mood for something dark and haunting.
Whoa.
Get ready, Graham. I'm standing up for this.
Okay. I'm sitting down for this.
Good luck, camera people.
You want something?
Yeah, play me something. We'll go dark and haunting. Oh, yeah, nice start. A minor, nice. James Norrington. Oh, James Norrington. James Norrington was a man I once knew. Back in our school days. It was college. Year number 3. James Norrington and I were roommates at a boarding school just south of Cambridge. Every Saturday night, James Norrington and I would head on down to the local pub.
Every Saturday night?
Every Saturday night.
Like everyone?
Every Saturday night. James Norrington and I would head down to the local pub in Cambridge.
Did you ever call him Jim?
No, never. We're not heathens. He's James. That's his God-given name, James. However, one day someone came into the pub and said, "Hey, Jim Norrington."
No, not Jim.
Yes.
His God-given name is James.
It's James. His God-given name is James. So James slowly but surely turned his eye to the source of the sound, and James Norrington could not believe what he saw.
Did he just turn one eye or both eyes?
No, he had this unique ability to turn his eyes independently, so he turned his left eye, just his left eye, to the door. And what did James Norrington see?
With his one eye, he had a super capability of turning one eye only, like a fish.
Like a fish. He was still playing darts with the right eye.
Still playing darts with the right eye.
Still playing darts, shooting darts, and naming bullseye after bullseye after bullseye. But James Norrington's left eye had turned to the source of the sound, and the source of the sound was indeed James Norrington's great uncle.
Great uncle?
Who was lost at sea, or so it was told, 15 odd years ago. And he was the only person who could get away with calling James Norrington Jim Norrington.
If he was gone for 16 years, could you say 16 odd years ago?
What did I say?
15 years odd ago. So I'm just curious, if it was 16, could you say odd years ago?
Because it's an even number.
Yeah. So would it have to be 16 even years ago?
Is it? Can you only say odd years ago if it's an odd number?
I'm not sure. I feel like I've derailed the story. Go back to the uncle.
So James, his one left eye looking at his uncle.
His other right eye throwing bullseyes.
Bullseyes after bullseyes after bullseyes. However, this demanded both of James's eyes. It was a rarity that James took his eye off the darts. Both of James's eyes darted over to the door, to his uncle. For that was the only person James had ever truly loved. James slowly walked to the door and said, "Dear uncle."
140! Sorry, I just felt appropriate to say that. That's a mathematical score you can get by throwing like a triple 20 and...
That's a dot score, 140?
Yeah.
Ooh, so
160! You can do that too.
These were the numbers that were called out when James had turned both of his eyes to the source of the door. When he darted over to the source of the sound, which was this uncle at the door.
Who'd been gone for 15 odd years.
15 odd years, not 15 even years.
No, of course that'd be silly.
That would be stupid.
Wouldn't make sense.
Wouldn't make any sense. And he walked slowly.
How slow?
One step at a time.
One step at a time? That's unheard of. One step.
One step at a time. One step at a time. And then 2 steps at a time.
No. 2, he's hopping.
He was hopping.
He was hopping his way there.
He went up to 3 steps at a time.
That's incredible. How do you do 3 steps at a time?
At a time.
He only has 2 legs. Oh, I understand.
3 steps at a time. And finally, he was standing right in front of his uncle. The source of the sound in which his eyes had both darted over towards at the door of the pub. He was face to face with his past. The only man he had truly loved. And he looked in his eyes and said, "Uncle, is that you?"
He had 2 eyes. He didn't know. He had one really good eye that could turn on its own. He turned the other eye, so he had 2 eyes. So he didn't know it was his uncle.
No, he recognized his
He
uncle.
was the only person he truly loved. If he truly loved, he would recognize his uncle. Sure.
Yes, but he was in such a disbelief he had to ask the question.
Oh, it's a disbelief.
It was disbelief.
It was kind of like a pointless question.
It was a sort of a redundant question.
Right.
Sort of a thing you're supposed to say when you see someone
Oh.
lost at sea.
For
The thing you're
15
supposed to
odd
see when you
years.
lost someone at sea.
I understand now.
So he looked at
It all makes so much sense.
It all makes so much sense because it's something you're supposed to say when someone's lost at sea. So as he said to his uncle, which was the source of the sound in which both his eyes had darted over to, his uncle looked at him and said, "Yes, Jim, it is I, your uncle, also named Jim. For he was named after Jim Norrington. But his father had an argument with his brother and named him James.
Ah, I get it now.
Insisted his name was James.
It will not be Jim.
He
No.
will not be Jim.
So who wanted to call his son Jim? Was it his wife?
Yes, it was his wife that wanted him to call him Jim.
But Jim's brother was not going to have his son James be called Jim.
No, because he'd abandoned him because he'd lost at sea and he blamed him.
Ah, I see.
He said, "Don't go out in the storm tonight, Jim."
180. That's the highest score you can get
For what?
for
darts.
Yeah.
180 is the highest score you can get for a dart.
Yes, triple 20 equals 60, 60, and 60, which is 180. This is a story about James Norrington. This was the story about James Norrington and Jim Norrington, his uncle. $180. Who'd like to play some darts?
James Norrington.
Or Jim.